Hello, everybody. Peter Greenberg here, coming to you from Hollywood, California, up in the hills from the Magic Castle Hotel, located conveniently next to, guess what? The legendary Magic Castle, one of the great performance venues for the magicians of the world. Lots to talk about with that in a little bit, but let's get to the news on this Tuesday. And there is a lot to talk about. You saw what happened Monday, and if you didn't, I'll refresh your memory. Spirit Airlines, we talked about this last week. They were on the verge of a bankruptcy filing. Well, yesterday, they filed a Chapter 11 reorganization under the federal bankruptcy laws. Let me explain to you what that means and what that doesn't mean. Let's start with what it doesn't mean. Spirit is not ceasing operations. It's not going out of business. It's reorganizing so they can get back on their feet financially, and for good reason. They have over $2.5 billion in debts. It's actually up to about $3.3 billion in debt. They've lost $350 million just the last quarter. They haven't made a profit since 2019. This is the first time in a decade that an airline has filed for Chapter 11. There was a time in the 80s and 90s that filing Chapter 11 was happening every day, right? There are some airlines, legacy carriers, that we like to joke, file the Chapter 33. That means they file Chapter 11 three times. So there's every reason to expect they might come out of this bankruptcy. They're still going to be flying. But let's be honest about what may the process. Number one, they've already been performing a serious amount of financial triage. They've furloughed a few hundred pilots. They've demoted another 100 pilots. They've gotten rid of a lot of their routes. They're selling some of their planes. And that's just for starters. The real problem that Spirit has goes back to before they even were thinking about merging with Frontier. If you're a low fare carrier, or an ULCC, an ultra low cost carrier. There's something sort of delusional about that because the costs aren't low. The fares may be low, but the costs are no longer low. And if the only thing you can compete with against the other major carriers is having low fares, and they have low fares, you've lost your competitive edge. And that's what gives you a problem. There used to be a saying, and by the way, I'm bringing it back now, that the definition of a successful airline is which can lose money longer, right? Remember the famous Richard Branson quote? If you want to become a millionaire, start with $1 billion and open an airline, you'll become a millionaire. So Frontier is not in great shape, and neither is JetBlue. You may remember the original merger partners were supposed to be Frontier and Spirit, which would have then formed the largest quote unquote ULCC. But right when that looked like it was going to happen, JetBlue stepped up, and they wanted it with a bigger offer. And the shareholders of Spirit said, oh, we'll go with JetBlue. That was blocked by the Justice Department and affirmed by a federal judge, claiming it was anti-competitive, and the deal went away. Why did JetBlue want Spirit? Here's an interesting story. Did they want their roots? No. Was it the same culture that JetBlue had? Clearly not. Why did they want Spirit? Because Spirit flies the exact same airplane type that JetBlue does. And if JetBlue really wanted to expand the airline and become a major player overseas, they needed that Airbus. If they went to Airbus and said, we'd like to buy 300, they'd be told, wait 5 years. They merge with Spirit, they get the planes as well as the pilots already trained to fly them overnight. That was the game plan. Didn't happen. So Spirit goes into a little bit of a free fall. JetBlue doesn't have a great financial quarter. And by the way, neither does Frontier. So now we start seeing that triage. What does that mean? Well, Frontier is supposed to come back in and maybe rekindle those merger talks. But those talks fell apart. And that's when Spirit went to their the people they owed money to, all of their creditors, and said, we need to talk about a Chapter 11. Well, now that's a done deal. They're getting some debtor in possession financing. And hopefully they'll be able to emerge from this Chapter 11. That's why they call it reorganization sometime next spring. In the meantime, the question I know that's on your minds is, should I buy a ticket on Spirit? Should I fly Spirit? And I'll give you a qualified yes. You buy it with a credit card, and if for any reason Spirit doesn't fly, you get your money back. But right now, I would have no qualms whatsoever about flying Spirit with only one little caveat. Make sure their schedule, because they are eliminating some routes, and they are eliminating certain frequencies on flights. And once that happens, we all know the law of supply and demand kicks in, and airfares go nowhere but up. So that's the story with Spirit. Now, we have an incoming administration, and the question is going to be, what's going to that mean for the FAA? What does that mean for the U.S. Department of Transportation? What does that mean to you? The spirit of the Trump campaign was to get rid of a lot of regulations, was to deregulate agencies, most regulatory agencies like the EPA, the FTC, the SEC. The question is, what about the FAA and the DOT? That's going to be interesting to see what happens. Remember that it was the DOT that's been trying to put in some new rules for passenger rights. Some of that was blocked by the Supreme Court. Some of that's actually in place now, but could easily go away in the new administration. Same thing with the FAA, because who's been battling with the FAA lately? Elon Musk, because of SpaceX. And, here he is in charge of government efficiency. He might be laser focused on the FAA. And by the way, the one thing I share in common with Elon Musk, the FAA does need reorganization. The FAA does need to be more efficient. We talked about this on this show and many others so many times, the fact that they are not necessarily acting on their clients' behalf. Their clients, of course, being you and me, not the airlines and not the manufacturers. So we will be watching that space carefully. Here's a funny story in the wake of the election, whether you are blue or red, whether you won or lost. We talked about this about 3 weeks ago before the election, about how some hotels and resorts are offering an election detox package where you can just go chill out either before the election or after. Well, that seems to have taken a firm footing now, at least in terms of at least one destination and at least one cruise line. Listen to this. The town of Olalai in rural Italy, they are actually giving away homes if you want to leave the United States, starting at €1. And they've launched a website, this town, at would-be American expats, offering cheap homes in the hope that those upset by the result will rush to snap up one of its empty properties. This particular town, by the way, is about 50% empty. So the mayor needs you, whether you voted for or against your favorite candidate, or whether your favorite candidate won or lost. Again, the town is called Olalai, Ollolai. And some of these houses are ready to occupy for prices up to about €100,000. It's about 105,000 US dollars, but a lot of them are much cheaper than that. And keep in mind that this town, last century, it's a small town. They've gone from 2,200 people now to 1,300, with only a handful of babies born each year. They need you. Oh my goodness, it's procreation time. But in any case, that's a website that you should check out. We'll have that on our website in case you're interested. And then it's the cruise version of this. One cruise line, it's called Villa V Residences. They're offering travelers to join a trip around the world for between 1 and 4 years. And they're basically saying, if you want to just have a 1-year escape from reality, you can have a 2-year midterm selection. You could have a 3-year everywhere but home cruise, or a 4-year skip forward. The program currently starts at less than $40,000 each year, based on a 4-year commitment. We'll find out what happens and how many people don't jump ship, but jump on ship. We'll see what happens. Speaking of that, get ready for a lot of Black Friday cruise deals coming up. And not every cabin on every ship, but remember, it's not just the airline deals that are happening out there. You'll see some Black Friday cruise deals, and they're very, very attractive. Then let's talk about some other stuff. We talked about this before, but now they've really, they've shown their hand. The most expensive pint of beer in America, you'll find it at LaGuardia, $27. Remember, when they redid LaGuardia, the Port Authority claimed they were only going to price things at street prices. Yeah, which street? Rodeo Drive? So a pint of beer at LaGuardia, $27. It is the most expensive beer in America, and you'll find it right there at LGA. A good reason not to drink before getting on the plane. You'll save a lot of money. Here's one for you. There's a Canadian airline called Flair, and they've just started something called a cancellation or delay guarantee. And in essence, you sort of like the idea that if your flight is delayed more than 60 minutes, you get a voucher for $60. If it's canceled within 72 hours of your departure time, you get a voucher for $60. That's the good news. Here's the problem. It's only good in your name. You can't transfer it, and it's only good for 60 days. So it's a little bit of a stunt, but I appreciate it. We've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. All the airline lounges have been oversold and oversubscribed. We all see the lines and the craziness and the chaos. It defeats the purpose of why you'd want to join that club in the first place, in particular the Delta Sky Club or the American Express Centurion clubs. Some of the Centurion clubs are saying you can only come for an hour. They're taking attendance. Maybe they have nuns with rulers too. But here's the wildest one now. The Delta Sky Club in Atlanta, we know how tough it was to get in with lines stretching a few hundred feet. I've seen it also at LaGuardia. Well, the other day, there was a 20-minute line to get out of the lounge. They couldn't even get out fast enough. That's how much they're overcrowded, and something we should consider before maybe joining up. Remember, that's supposed to be one of the perks of being an American Express cardholder is that you have access to the Delta Sky Club. Maybe not. Still a continuing problem and will be, especially over the Thanksgiving holidays. Speaking of the Thanksgiving holidays, let's talk about that. Every year I tell you the same thing. You do not, under any circumstances, want to travel on a Wednesday before Thanksgiving or the Sunday thereafter. They made a movie about that called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. We all know how that looked. Well, this year, AAA is saying 80 million people will be traveling, most of them by car. But on that Sunday following Thanksgiving, they're estimating 3.7 million people crowding into airport terminals. That will be the largest number of Americans ever screened by the TSA in any given day, if that number holds up, and there's every reason to believe it will. So do yourself a favor, leave this coming Sunday and come back the following Tuesday. Extend it. By the way, you'll see unbelievable airfare deals. And even more important than that, take a look at what we found on international airfares where they don't celebrate Thanksgiving or turkey. If you leave on that Tuesday before Thanksgiving and you want to go to London, we've seen fares as little as $375 round trip. Round trip. You know what it was this past summer? Almost $2,000, right? We've seen Detroit to Amsterdam fares for $385 round trip, and a lot of fares that come in at under $500 round trip. Guess what? It won't be crowded over there. You don't have to eat turkey. You won't be standing in line. You'll get better service, and the hotel fares have also come down because most people are not going there at that time of the year. They're stuck on the freeway to see grandma. Speaking about stuck on the freeway, let me tell you my surefire way to satisfy your Thanksgiving family obligations and not spend a lot of money and still not get stuck in traffic. It's simple. It gets down to a definition of terms. All right. In my book, Thanksgiving is an obligatory dysfunctional family get-together. You got to go. The relatives push all your buttons. You're stuck in traffic. It's miserable. And you didn't want to eat turkey anyway. Okay. So here's what I do. Take the very first flight of the day, 6 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. You'll still get to where you need to go in time to carve the turkey, have them push all the buttons, go through all that miserable stuff. And then early Friday morning, gotta go. And you fly home on the one day that nobody's flying. You can go bowling on the plane. And while everybody's stuck in the mall for Black Friday, you're back at home as much bad college and professional football as humanly imaginable. The weekend comes back to you. You've gone for Thanksgiving, you've seen the relatives, and you're back home, no muss, no fuss. Now, if you're like everybody else and you feel like leaving on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and coming back on the Sunday thereafter, do not come crying to me. I'll hear from you maybe 2 weeks later going, I can't believe I did that. Well, don't do that. It doesn't benefit anybody. All right, let's go say hi to some folks here. We'll scroll down. Here we go. From the top. Jim and Harriet, always number one from Richmond, Virginia. How are you guys? Priya saying hi. She's now not in Chicago. She's in Fez in Morocco. Beautiful. You know, we were just in Morocco. We love Fez. We love the Medina there. You're going to have a great time. And remember, we were there because for the first time in history, a U.S. airline is flying nonstop between the U.S. and Marrakesh. That would be United Airlines, part of the huge international expansion, which, of course, kicks in next year with places like Greenland and Mongolia and the Philippines and Dakar and Senegal. Not exactly what you'd expect United to be flying to, but you know what? I think they've got the right idea. All right. Paul saying hi from Ashland, Virginia. Sue's saying hi from Bellingham, Washington. Let's keep going here. Matthew saying hi. Thanksgiving greetings. Early Thanksgiving greetings from Syracuse. Robin saying hello from Williamsburg. Joy saying, going to Dubai in February. Is it warm enough to go swimming? Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you can even go skiing if you want to go to the Kempinski Hotel there and do some indoor skiing. Our good friend John Lample just returning from a week in Turkey. All the best. Well, if you were in Turkey, then you did get the best. I'll be going there next month. Mike's saying off he's cooling in Fort Lauderdale. Colleen is saying Frontier Airlines is thanking its customers by giving away 1 million free tickets ahead of Thanksgiving to destinations near and far. This is an odd promotion for a company that's struggling. Wouldn't it be interesting if they couldn't give their seats away? You know what? I'm not so sure they're giving away 1 million free tickets. That makes no sense to me. I'll check into that, Colleen, okay? It may be $1 million worth of free tickets. I doubt seriously it's 1 million tickets, but I could be wrong. I'll check into that. Camilla's saying hi as always from Tucson. Hello, Camilla. Adrian's saying from Madison. Okay. Well, my favorite city, Madison, Wisconsin. That's where I went to school. That's where I owe my career. And what a beautiful city it is. I hope you're staying close to the lake and having a great time. And if you're there on Saturday, although at this time of the year, I take it back, it's not operating this Saturday, but usually until around the end of October, and then starting up again in April, the world's most incredible farmers market surrounds the state capitol in Madison. That is something to behold. It's truly the best farmers market in America, if not the world. Speaking of markets, by the way, United Airlines is reporting a huge increase in bookings to Christmas markets around the world, not just in Germany, not just in Austria, but lots of other places in Europe and other destinations as well. So a lot of people are going to different destinations before Christmas to do their shopping. I did that last year in both Germany and Austria. I had such an incredible time on the river sailing into these Christmas markets, including my favorite one in Nuremberg in Germany. Wow, did they do it right. Okay. Hello from Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. Hello, Mujema. All right, Deb saying from New Jersey, Joyzy. Just watched your piece on the Army in Bozeman. Oh, yeah. Well, we have, if you watch on our channel, we do a series called Hotels of the Past, and we featured many hotels, whether it's the Grand Hotel in Mackinac, the Plaza Hotel in New York, the hotel in French Lick, Indiana, an amazing hotel there, the Grand Britannia in Athens, the Chiron Palace in Istanbul, and most recently, the Armory in Bozeman, Montana. It was left vacant for a while. It was the former National Guard Armory that basically did all the training of the troops in World War II and in the Korean War, and they've redone it now. And they've kept the original architecture of that armory, and I'm glad you like the piece. Jeff is saying, the Magic Castle is fun. No kidding. I attended a high school reunion event there many years ago. Have you learned any new tricks? I actually have. I wish I could perform them for you now, but I have a couple of them. Maybe in a week or two, I'll give you a couple. All right. I'll never tell you how I did it, of course. That's the great secret. By the way, we're doing our radio show from the Magic Castle Hotel where we are right now. And if you're staying at this hotel, that's how you get into the Magic Castle, because it's by invitation only. One of the guests on our show this week, probably the best magician working in America today. His name is Steve Cohen. He performs at the Palace Hotel in New York every Friday and Saturday night to only about 60 people. It's very intimate, close-up magic. I've never seen anybody walk away from that show without their mouths wide open in disbelief. He's amazing and well worth the show, but he's guesting on our show from the Magic Castle Hotel coming up in a couple of weeks. So check that out. All right. Tayo is saying, do you think it ever makes sense to buy points for hotel or flight redemptions, especially when they offer buy X points, get Y free type of deals? Well, one of the things that mileage programs are doing these days, and points programs, which I sort of understand but don't necessarily subscribe to, is the miles plus cash or the points plus cash. It sort of defeats the idea of, a loyalty program that actually rewards you without you having to spend more money. But again, since none of these programs are under any sort of control, which I'm certainly hoping will happen soon because they've literally gotten out of control. What seems like a great offer doesn't work out with the math. I mean, think about this. In the old days, remember, these programs have been around for 43 years. They were started in 1981 by American Airlines. In the old days, when you got to 25,000 miles, you got a free round-trip domestic ticket. Okay. Now you can't get on an airplane without them hawking credit cards for you, basically saying that if you sign up for the card, you're going to get 60,000 bonus miles, free tickets to anywhere they travel. That's a lie, too. And then if you don't pay your bill off in full every month, you're chasing 26% interest. So by the time you get to a mileage redemption level, which, by the way, is way higher than 25,000 miles these days, for just about any kind of reasonable flight you want, to redeem that quote-unquote free ticket, you spent $9,000 in interest. Why do you think the credit cards are so happy for you to sign up? They don't care if you ever fly. They just ka-ching you on the interest, considering the fact that only 51% of Americans pay their credit card bills in full every month. So the answer to your question is, it doesn't make sense. We need a complete revamp of these quote-unquote loyalty programs that have now morphed way beyond loyalty into total spend programs, and that's somewhat it is disingenuous. Okay, let's keep going. Joy wants to know, where would I look for cruise specials and airfare deals for Black Friday? Would the deals be good through May of 2025? More than likely, a partial yes to that answer. Remember, the cruise lines are selling stuff that's going to raise incremental revenue for them for a number of unsold cabins for relatively last-minute cruises, right? They're not selling cruises for November now of 2025. They're doing much more close-in stuff. Where are you going to find those deals? Go to their website. Go to Royal Caribbean. Go to Carnival. Go to Regent. Go to Crystal. Go to Silversea. Go to Seabourn. They all have websites, and you will see stuff popping up, right? You can also register for it as well. Okay. Taya says, what are your thoughts on spending New Year's Eve in New York? Good idea. All right. As a born and bred New Yorker, let me give you some history here. When I was growing up, I used to beg to stay up until midnight. Why? Because we could watch from the Waldorf Astoria Ballroom, Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians singing Old Lang Syne. And then as the ball dropped, from then the Astor Hotel in New York, and it hit midnight, I was allowed to go into the kitchen. My mother had Revereware. Anybody here remember Revereware? Those big copper pans? And she'd give me a big metal ladle, and I would go to the window and bang pots and pans. That is my New Year's Eve. The most overrated holiday of the year, second only possibly to Valentine's Day for being overrated. That's for another reason. But in any case, I am not, you know what I do for New Year's Eve now? In the old days, I used to beg to stay up. Now I'm begging to go to bed early. But how do we do it? Simple. Order Chinese in and watch Netflix. Happy New Year. You couldn't pay me to go to Times Square. I mean, that's a convention of pickpockets and people freezing and throwing up. Right? They always show you the people yelling and screaming. They don't show you the other 20% of the people bent over and unloading on the sidewalk. So not my favorite holiday. Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay. Paul's saying $528 round trip, JFK to Prague, December 3rd to 11th. My point exactly. Now is the time to go. I'm glad you found that fair, Paul. Susie's saying traveling to Tanzania in May, when to purchase tickets. Well, here's the deal. It's not a question of when to purchase tickets. It's which route are you going to take, right? There are no nonstop flights from the U.S. So which city do you want to go through? And my guess for you, there are three airlines you want to look at. KLM through Amsterdam, Qatar through Doha, and Turkish through Istanbul. And right now, I think you'll find, surprisingly, Qatar has probably the best deal, followed by Turkish. So check that out. Okay. Hello, Robert from Chicago. Susie's saying, what is the cheapest day to fly out? Are you talking about on the return from or the day two? The cheapest day to fly on Thanksgiving would be this coming Saturday or Sunday. The most ridiculous day to fly back, of course, I said before, is the following Sunday. You want to come back Tuesday or Wednesday. By the way, for those people who really want to strategize, and you saw the fare that he just quoted to going for $528. There are 2 weeks in the year in the travel industry known as the dead weeks, right? One of the dead weeks is the week immediately following that dysfunctional family get together known as Thanksgiving. And the second, when people are just recovering from that, right? And the second dead week is the week right after New Year's when people are simply just recovering. And that's when you want to fly. So check out those dead weeks deals, including that Tuesday after Thanksgiving, right? I believe it's December 3rd. December 3rd, you're going to see a lot of airfare deals like you've never believed because the planes will be empty going overseas. A lot of great deals on December 3rd. Okay, Christian wants to know, hello from a cold Helsinki. Yes, this is the time of year. But in fact, my favorite time in Helsinki is next month because you fly to Helsinki and then you go further north to Rovaniemi in Lapland and hang out with the reindeer. I love doing that. It's the layered look. I think I'm dressing in 7 layers. Okay. Oh, we've just listed where you can find that story we just did on the Armory in Bozeman. So check out the YouTube channel and you'll see it there. Of course, all of our shows are available on Amazon, on Apple TV Plus. You'll see clips on YouTube, and of course, they premiere always on PBS. Speaking of that, our show about America's Hidden Coast, Mississippi, is airing now, not just on PBS, but on Amazon.com. And here's our tease.
Get set to discover what some call the Secret Coast, reborn out of pure devastation to become a beacon of resilience, small in size, but bursting with history, beauty, and a few surprises.
There we go.
We'll take you past the usual attractions to find a place and a people unmatched in creativity and spirit. I'm Peter Greenberg, and this is America's Hidden Coast, Mississippi.
So as you can see, it premiered 2 months ago, but it's now available on Amazon and Apple TV as well. And premiering next month, we'll have more about that next week. Our next special in our Hidden series, Hidden Louisiana, which will be on PBS starting in December. More about that when we get together next week. Let's keep going here. Robert says, a new employee at United Airlines in Chicago. Oh, you are a new employee and hope to travel next year. All right, Robert, use those flight benefits. Rory saying hi from the Hudson Valley. Paul saying, I still have my mom's Revere wear. All right. By the way, so do I. They don't make it that way anymore. It's with the copper bottom, right? Love that stuff. Okay. Oh, Rory says, oh, I see that. Yes. I remember. Oh, and Guy Lombardo. We are old, my friend. Hey, listen, our family was lucky. We had one of the first black and white TVs on our block in New York, and we got to watch it. And by the way, you know who was okay, I'll give you a real piece of trivia. You know who was the commentator as the ball dropped from the Astor Hotel? A former star of NBC Radio who made the transition to television, Ben Grauer. He was the one who announced it way before Dick Clark. Way before Dick Clark. All right. Let's go to some of your questions that you asked. Here's one from George. How do you get a ticket to the Magic Castle show? I don't know a magician. Here's how you do it. You stay at the Magic Castle Hotel, and that gets you in, right? Not many people know that. It's the hidden gem. That's how you do it. Okay. Raymond says, while I was at work tonight, I heard you on the radio. I'm having an issue with Southwest. My family and I were traveling from Miami back to Chicago, and we're supposed to take off at 3:25 in the afternoon. Well, needless to say, the plane broke, and they couldn't find another until 10 o'clock that night. In the meantime, the terminal had closed, and there was no food. When asked about food, we were told there's a vending machine. Oh, yeah, this is sounding bad. With 2 minors, that was not acceptable. Finally, we boarded the plane. We're sitting for a while. Then the pilot tells us that they have called for fuel 4 times and nothing. 1 hour later, the fuel truck shows up and begins fueling the plane. 45 minutes later, the pilot tells us, this is a circus. You needed the pilot to tell you that? And the fuel truck ran out of fuel. Oh, wow. Another 45 minutes later, we finally have fuel, but now they need to get the trash off the plane and fill it with water. This was another 30 minutes. I hate to even guess how long the flight was supposed to be since it was Southwest. How long could it have been? Losing a day of pay for work, having to keep my dogs at a boarding facility overnight, and the airline will only offer me a $100 per person flight credit. I hope you can help with this. The answer is, yeah, I can. There is that new DOT rule, right? That if your flight is delayed more than 3 hours, you're entitled to compensation over and above a flight credit. It's called cash. So here's what I want you to do. Email me, peter@petergreenberg.com, with all the details, your flight numbers, your confirmation numbers, times and dates, anybody who you met with a first and last name and a title at Southwest would be helpful, and we'll get into it, okay? Again, for everybody watching me now, you need to be your own best reporters like this happens. Take down names, be nice, don't be aggressive, make sure there's a paper trail, and then you have something to stand on. But in this kid's situation, it's clearly not weather. It's clearly under the airline's control, and you clearly deserve compensation. So get me that information, okay? Okay, Laura says, Christmas travel tips and tricks, making flight reservations from Chicago to Newark between the 23rd and the 29th. Well, in Chicago and Newark, you also have that, that intangible called weather. Here's what I do, all right? First of all, there are two kinds of airline bags, carry-on cost. Okay, we've established that. So don't pack heavy. Second of all, if you are going to pack, and if you're going with Christmas presents, and it sounds if you're traveling on the 23rd, you might, make sure you take photographs of everything you packed in your bag, assuming they even have price tags on them. Take pictures of that, and put a piece of tape you can label with a magic marker on the inside of your bag with your name and cell phone number, so that they rip off the bag tag on the outside of the bag, they can still find you. And then whatever you do, don't take flights with less than a 90-minute connect time. I even like to go for 2 hours if you're making connections. All right. And then when you land, don't just grab your bag off the conveyor belt, assuming it shows up. Open it up and make sure that everything is in there that you packed and matches the photos that you took. Because once you leave the airport, it's your word against the airlines, and you lose. Okay? Bottom line, I wish you luck, because that's the time of the year you won't find me traveling at all. That's when I'm at home watching Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. I'm not kidding. I just want to pick vowels during the entire Christmas holiday season. Okay. Petra says, have you been to Vienna for the Christmas markets? Oh, yeah. We love the Christmas markets. Seriously. I mean, it's so good. It is so good. And remember, there's a reason why they sell all that apple cider, because it's laced with alcohol, and given what the temperature is, you'll need it. And of course, the other thing I have to warn you about Vienna, 2 words, they serve everything Mitschlag with cream. So you'll come back with a bigger waistline. Aaron says, here's another Vienna question. I'm visiting Vienna in late December, early January, and would love to take a short trip to see the Austrian Alps, but don't know where would be best. I'm okay with hiking and skiing. Okay. What you haven't told me is how many days you want to spend and how much money you want to spend, and whether you want to go skiing or not. So get back to me on that. You know the address, peter@petergreenberg.com. Lucas says, I'm lucky enough to have 4 days free next April on a business trip to China. As I will be in Singapore beforehand anyway, I now have the opportunity to choose any city for these 4 days. In my head, Shanghai and Beijing might be an option for my first visit. Oh, it's a no-brainer. It's not Beijing. It's Shanghai. Shanghai, to me, is still Asian body heat. It's got great romance. It's got great architecture and style. It's really one of my favorite cities in Asia. Shanghai is the no-brainer, okay? There you go. Faye says, I'm flying from the US to Australia, but have a connecting flight in Auckland, New Zealand. My flights go from LA to Auckland and then Auckland and Melbourne. They're on the same airline. So will I have to go through customs in New Zealand at all? I also have global entry if this changes anything. Global entry will change nothing, because global entry is only when you come back to the US. But if your bags are tagged all the way from, let's say, from Los Angeles, to Melbourne on Air New Zealand, then you know what? You will not have to go through customs or immigration there. You'll not need a visa because you're not staying in the country. You're going right through. But what I would do is check with the Australian consulate just to make sure you don't need their ETA. That's their electronic travel authorization to enter the country officially. double check that. But my understanding is you're just a transit passenger and you'll be treated as such. Okay. Al says, does flying business class give you lounge access for the airline you're flying? What if it's a partner airline? I'm flying from Austin to Singapore with layovers at DFS. Okay, here's the problem. There is no one answer to that. If you are Star Alliance Gold and you're flying on United in the US, that doesn't necessarily mean you get access to the lounge, right? However, if you're changing planes in Frankfurt to Lufthansa, your Star Alliance Gold membership gets you into their lounge, right? They're a partner airline as part of the Star Alliance. So there's no one answer for that. And you need to call the airline on their 800 number to ask them. Because, by the way, these things change every day. Okay, Britt says, I'm going to Tanzania, thinking of canceling my Expedia reservation to book directly with a hotel. But is there any drawback to this? The price difference is only about $150. Well, here's what I do. And the folks at the online travel agencies hate me for this. You must assume that when you see a price on any of the online travel agencies, they're getting about a 20 to 30% commission on the rate that you're paying. So if you know that, and you know the name of the hotel, it's not like an opaque site like Priceline. But if you know that, why wouldn't you call the hotel directly? Let's say the hotel is based at $200 a night on Expedia. I'll just use Expedia as an example. So you know at a 20% minimum commission, the hotel's only going to net $160. Right? What's to prevent you from calling the hotel and offering them $170? They've just saved $30, and you just saved $30. See? So there's no reason for not asking. If you don't ask, you don't get. All right? If you're paying with a credit card and you get a guaranteed reservation, it's no different. And you're dealing with the hotel directly, which I like to do because why? You're establishing an actual relationship with the front desk manager or the manager on duty, which may actually help you once you get there. All right. All right. Oh, let's go to the photo of the week. You got to love this one. Hey, Vicky Peel. I think is it Pyle or Peel, Vicky? She writes on November 9th, so just a couple of weeks ago, she visited Chambord in the Loire Valley of France. A mirror image of the castle was reflected in the water surrounding it. During the day of my visit, it was cloudy, there was no wind, and the water was still making the perfect conditions for this spectacular site. I wholeheartedly agree. It's all about waiting for the light, and in your case, also waiting for the wind. And if you think you've got a great photo of the week candidate, and you want to be like right up there with Vicky, you know what to do. Just send it to us. Photo contest at petergreenberg.com. And if we agree, it goes right up on the screen. I will also tell you that my experience in the Loire Valley, Vicky, was that I would take a day trip on the train from Paris, and then I'd go ballooning over the Loire Valley. And the beautiful thing about that is you know where you're taking off from. You have no clue where you're going to land. And 9 times out of 10, you're landing in some little chateau's backyard, and everybody comes out with a cheese board and champagne. You can't beat that. Anyway, it's sort of like you've liberated France, and then they liberate you. Anyway, thank you for the photo. We really appreciate that. Let's scroll down here. Hold on a second. I'm going to come all the way down. Chambord, yes. And Sandy says she loves it too. Here we go. If the EU is no longer giving passport stamps for entry into a country, how do we keep a record of our travels? It's called your boarding pass. By the way, Tayo is right. But as of November 27th, that's coming up, none of the EU countries will continue to stamp your passport. And for those sentimentalists like me, I'm going to miss that. All right. I'm looking at somebody else here. Here we go. Christopher says, I just purchased a vacation package in Costa Rica for February. The travel agency contacted me to inform me that because of Spirit Airlines pending bankruptcy issues, they might have to change my itinerary and change my flight and charge me more. What's up with that? Well, they're doing what travel agencies do to protect you. They're making sure that you can actually make your flight. Remember, if Spirit Airlines starts pulling back on flights or cancels routes, you better be happy that this travel agency is changing your itinerary. All right, so that's what's up with that. This is where travel agencies earn their money. All right, everybody who thought travel agencies were dead or irrelevant, welcome to the pandemic. That's when they advocated for us. They got no commission for that, to fight for us to get our way overdue refunds. And they proved their value then, and they continue to prove their value now. Okay. Thank you for that nice note, Wendy. I appreciate that. Rory's laughing. Sandy's saying greetings from Charlotte. Okay. A couple of housekeeping notes. Today, of course, we're in Hollywood at the Magic Castle Hotel. And then we're heading to the airport and flying about 7,000 miles away. So when I see you next week, it'll be from a surprise destination. I'm not going to tell you where, but it will definitely surprise you. Of course, listen to our radio show this Saturday. Of course, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We also stream it live on our website, petergreenberg.com, at about 10:05 a.m. Eastern Time. I hope you'll catch it. In the meantime, keep sending me your questions, peter@petergreenberg.com. We'll see you on the radio. We'll see you on television, of course, and we'll see you next week with our global travel update. Thanks to Anthony Protas-Chung for all of his help, as always, doing the boards. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. And remember, if you're going through election detox, there's an Italian city that wants you to come move there. So at least you have options. See you next week, everybody.